Dad, what are you doing?
Hello to part 2. I am off to the Home Depot to get my track. Alright, look what I picked up from the Home Depot. This is that track. Found it in the electrical section. And it's a lot heavier than I thought. Weight wise and like metal thickness wise. So pretty happy with that. And now, hey kiddos, guess what? Some parts are in. Yes, the parts are in. Most of the parts. Still got to get the actual winch motor. That's coming in today. UPS. Don't fail me, UPS. So let's get into this. So, man, there's nothing more better than when parts come in. I love it when parts come in. Well, there's one thing that's better than when parts come in. But anyway, so check this out. So this is how this works. Let me flip you around here. So here is the track right here. So here's the track. See that? Okay, so let me show you how this little system works. So the track gets held up to the ceiling, and then, come on, camera. This little guy here is the roller unit, and that sits right in this track. Let me try to get you a better angle here. My ladder's in the way. Yeah, so this thing sits in this track. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Like, and then it just rolls inside this track. So that's pretty ingenious, isn't it? This thing is pretty cool. It's got the bearings on either side so it doesn't wobble back and forth, and then it has the actual bearings that carry the load. I'll put all the links in the description. It was in the first video, but I'll add it to the second video. And then the way the track is held up onto the ceiling is with this bracket. So this bracket just slides right over the track. And then there's a pinch bolt. So you see the hole on the side? There's a pinch bolt that goes through that hole and then cinches this up so it's not so loose on here. So that's what I was saying when I was putting the little cross braces in, that if I were to hook it straight to the rafter, if I would bolt this straight to the rafter, then it would be angled. It would be like this, and that's not going to work. So I needed a flat surface to mount this to. So yeah, let's get started. I did mess up on something, and I will show you up here. I counted, and I do this a lot, unfortunately, but I counted the gaps between the boards. I know those lights are really bright. And so I counted eight gaps, right? But there's actually 9 boards. So I am one of these short. And because I do all my work over here on this side, so I do mainly all of my work on this side of the shop, I'm just going to skip one of these over here. I know that is not ideal, but I don't have the time to get another one in. So let's get rolling. Stop talking. Let's get rolling. Okay, so to put these up, I'm just going to use the same lag bolts that I used to bolt the little cross members up there. I really hope that that's going to hold everything. I'm a little nervous about that. So, yeah, like I said, I'm not a construction guy or an engineer guy or anything like that. I'm a thinker, and I'm a guy who right now is desperate to get something up here. So I'm going to run with that idea. But first I'm going to check to see about the hole diameter and washer size. Oh, first thing I need to do is I need to draw a straight line. So I need to draw a straight line to make sure that this thing's going to run true. And I was thinking about it last night. I'm like, how am I going to make sure that I have a straight line? And so what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to use a chalk line, and I'm going to try to do that. So wish me some luck on that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do on this one end is I'm going to just, it's going to be hard to do with one hand, but here's the top of the rafter, and I'm just going to run a straight edge or a straight line down here with a square. And that way I know where the center of the roof is. You can see that line. Hopefully you can see that line. Running straight up. And then I'm going to mark the bottom of it here. And then that's where I'm going to put my chalk line. And then I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. And I'm hoping when I snap the chalk line, it's going to work. But you and me will be the first to find out, won't we? Let's check it out. Let's see what happens. All right, got the other side finished. Let's get my chalk. I really hope this is going to work, but I'm not sure it's going to work because I've got this power cord in the way. And let me see if I can do this. Give me just a second here. All right, so like I said, I'm not sure this is going to work, but what I'm doing is just going down I marked both ends, and I'm taking my chalk line, and I'm literally just going, I had to go under this cord, and I'm just kind of setting it in this insulation as I go back. Man, I hope this works. I need the ladder just a little bit farther back. Oh, and I'm caught under a nail. Ain't gonna work. There we go. Okay. Probably pretty noisy moving this ladder around. Now I'm gonna be all up in y'all's face. So let's see if this will work. Please God, let this work. It's a lot of work just to do that. Man, it looks like it almost worked. I see lines all the way down, except right here. It looks like this piece of plywood is hanging down just a little bit more than the 2x6, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't really matter because of the bracket's going to hang down lower. So it's not like that it's not like this piece of plywood's going to be in the way. Initially, I thought that the frame would sit right up against this, but it actually will stick down a little bit. So that piece of plywood hanging down a little bit is not going to be in the way. Okay, so what I did was I got the, I just went over some of the ones that were lighter with a pen so I could see them a little better. I got to thinking about this last night. These sections are 10 feet long, but I only have 8 feet from the last board to the end of the shop in the loft. So what I'm going to run into is I'm going to have to put some of the brackets up to a certain point, and then I'm going to have to slide the rail in and actually pass those brackets. You'll see when I'm doing it. So now I'm just going to put the brackets up on those lines. Hopefully that will be straight, and go from there. Okay, hope you guys can see okay going into this board. Hopefully you can see that line right there. And I'm going to drill a pilot hole because I'm afraid that the lag bolt might split this. So I'm going to drill a pilot hole up in here. Okay, I'm back. Yeah, I didn't think about needing an extension, which, why would I really think about that? So let's go ahead and run this sucker up in here. Okay, so I'm going to loosen this just a hair. The reason I'm leaving them a little bit loose is to make it easier to feed that track through. And then I'll just use a, see if you can see this, what it looks like up here. There we go. And then what I'll do is, because there's this gap right here, once you put the track in here, you run that cinch bolt across here, and there'll be a gap enough to put a ratchet on that, and then I'll just snug them all down once I get the track set. So now what I'm going to do is go the rest of the way down, not all the way down. I'm going to go halfway, and then I'll bring you guys back. All right, so I've got 4 of them up, and I'm going to put one more, and then I'm going to try to run this rail in there. And like I said, I got to run it past to go up into that loft to give me enough room to then put the other brackets up. And also I'm going to have to cut the one, and I'm going to try to, I'll just show you when I do it. But what I'm going to try to do is marry the two in one of these brackets. Okay, so I put 5 brackets up, and now I've got the actual rail. I'm going to try to just slide it through here. Now, hopefully you guys will survive this operation. There we go. Yep, that one's a little bit off. Third one down's a little off. Holy crap, my way of drawing a straight line on the roof worked. How about that? Look at that. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Look at that. Let me turn you around. Okay. Now I don't have the cinch bolts in, of course. Get you up here. I also need to come up with a way of putting a stop down at this end so my trolley doesn't run all the way off the end. And I'm thinking about just putting a bolt through that last one maybe. I don't know. But so there it is, up. At least 10 feet of it. Okay, so I got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th bracket in, and you can see, man, thankfully this sucker fell right where I needed it to. So I got that track halfway in. Now what I'm going to do is measure to the other end here, and then cut the other piece of track to fit this length. And I think what I'm going to do is just shut up and work, and you guys can just ride along and watch the rest of this process, because I think you can understand what's going on here. And then what I'll do is I got to put the cinch bolts in to cinch this thing down. And if you're wondering where I'm going to, so you know, you got to think about putting your winch in. Where are you going to put your winch in? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put it in up here, because I got a pretty good platform with all the wood that's up here. And I believe I can just set the winch up on here and then lift it up to the end of the track and slide it this way. Okay, track's up. I still got to put the cinch bolts in, but I think you can see. There we go. And then where it meets is right here. Let me get this to look up more. What the hell is it looking at? Okay. So right here is where the track meets. And I think there is going to be a little bump right there. We'll see. Once I get the cinch bolts in, maybe I can pull that one side down a little. You can see one, I don't know if you can see it from there, but one side's a little bit higher than the other. But next up is I'm going to put the cinch bolts. And one thing I wanted to say is in the kit, they give you the cinch bolts. So you don't have to worry about doing that. They give you those with a lock nut. So yeah, I'm going to cinch these down, and I'm going to tighten those brackets now that everything's up there. And I might just go ahead and run one of the trolleys down just to see how it rolls. So that's just for fun. But yeah, let me get that done and I'll bring it back. Okay, so I figured I'd just show you one of these cinch bolt deals. It just goes through this hole here. And you do have to pull down on the rail a little bit to get it to go through. And these are metric. Well, they're, yeah, metric. 17 millimeter. And then I'm just using a smaller impact, M12 Milwaukee, and then crank this sucker down. Don't go crazy when I crank it down. And then I couldn't get a ratchet in between here, so I just have a ratchet wrench, and I'm just snugging these up. So yeah, there it is. Hopefully you can see that. The bolt goes through the top, and then that just cinches this in, and it won't slide either way. There you go. Okay, the cinch bolts are put in, and I tightened all the lags. I did have a hell of a time with one down here. I ended up having to stick a pry bar. Flip you around here. Had to stick a pry bar in this one up here. Let me kill these lights. That one there, I think the 2x6 must be higher, no, lower than the other 2x6s, because I really had to pull down on the rail. I used a pry bar actually to be able to get that cinch bolt through, but everything else seems fine. And even up here where this seam is, it runs pretty smooth. There's a little clunk clunk when you go over it, but now I did hang on this thing, but I'm not sure I'll be able to do that in video. But let's see, one thing that I screwed up on, and I'm gonna make some noise here sliding this ladder, but one thing that I screwed up on was, remember when I slid that, the track, I slid it to meet the other track in the middle, and I accidentally pulled some of it away from the end of that bracket. So if you got to do that, just be careful. Make sure you double check that you didn't pull this one. Now, I hung on this, and it seems plenty sturdy. And this is a recipe for disaster. Let's see. All right, I think you can see me. I'm not on the ladder right now. Ugh. So I'm 250 pounds, so I'm not sure if I'll be lifting anything more than 250 pounds. The winch is only rated for 440. So I'm just going to be lifting the front end of lawnmowers up, and like pressure washers. I might lift my generator up to put it on the table to do work on it. Living in Florida, you kind of got to have a generator. Well, you don't have to have a generator, but it's good to have a generator. And that thing weighs, I think 300 pounds. So it's a little more than me, but I think I'm good. I was a little worried about those lag bolts, man. But we'll see. Time will tell. Hopefully nothing comes down on my head. Next thing is to get the winch motor in. I'm a little concerned at my plug right there. I don't know how much cord comes on that winch, not the actual winch cable, the actual 110 plug cord. So we'll just have to wait and see on that. So I'll bring it back once the winch gets in here. We'll bolt up those rollers, and then throw the winch down on that end where that wood's at, get it up on the rail, and yeah, let's see how this thing works. Well guys, I hate to do this, but I'm gonna have to do a part 3. So I'll try to drop the part 3 really quickly. so you guys can see the end result. I did have some issues with the winch, so yeah, part 3 will be dropped probably tomorrow, at the latest the next day. So apologize, video is getting really long and I spent a lot of time on the winch, so stay tuned for part 3.